Have you ever heard of the Sultan who inherited the world's most powerful empire, but preferred the palace to the battlefield? Today, we're diving into the life and reign of Selim II, son of the legendary Suleiman the Magnificent, known in the West as Selim the Sot, and in Turkey as Selim, or Selim the Blonde. His story is a fascinating look at a pivotal moment in Ottoman history. Was he a weak ruler who let the empire decline, or a savvy delegator who understood the changing nature of power? Let's find out. In 1566, the mighty Ottoman Empire was at its absolute peak. For 46 years it had been led by Suleiman the Magnificent, a warrior sultan who personally commanded his armies and expanded the empire's borders to their greatest extent. But in the midst of the siege of Szigetvar in Hungary, the 71-year-old Suleiman died. The news was kept secret from the troops to maintain morale, and power passed to his only surviving son, Selim. Selim II, his ascension to the throne, was a world away from the bloody succession battles his father and grandfather had faced. He was the undisputed heir, and he inherited an empire that was vast, wealthy, and institutionally robust. But Selim was a very different man from his father. Where Suleiman was a tireless campaigner, Selim had no interest in military life. In fact, he became the first Ottoman Sultan who never personally led his army into battle. This was a monumental shift. From the very beginning of the empire, the Sultan was expected to be the chief warrior, the Ghazi, leading his men to victory. Selim's decision to remain in Istanbul and entrust military matters to his generals marked the beginning of a new era of palace sultans. So, if the Sultan wasn't leading the army, who was running the show? The answer lies with one of the most brilliant statesmen in Ottoman history, Grand Vizier Sokolu, Mehmed Pasha. Sokolu had served Suleiman with distinction and continued as the de facto ruler under Selim. He was the architect of state policy, the commander-in-chief in all but name, and the true power behind the throne. This arrangement worked surprisingly well. The empire's administrative machinery, perfected under Suleiman, was so effective that it could run smoothly, even without the Sultan's direct involvement. Sokolu Mehmed Pasha handled everything, from military campaigns to diplomacy and internal governance, allowing Selim to focus on other pursuits. One of the most defining events of Selim's reign was the conquest of Cyprus in 1571. The island was a strategic prize, a Venetian stronghold in the eastern Mediterranean that disrupted Ottoman trade routes and provided a base for Christian pirates. The Ottomans launched a massive invasion, capturing the major cities of Nicosia and Famagusta after brutal sieges. The conquest of Cyprus solidified Ottoman dominance in the region and was a major military achievement. It seemed as though the Ottoman war machine was as unstoppable as ever. But this victory was immediately followed by a devastating defeat. In response to the fall of Cyprus, the Pope organized a Holy League, a coalition of Catholic maritime powers, including Spain, Venice, and the Papal States. Their combined fleet met the Ottoman navy at the Battle of Lepanto in the Gulf of Patras, just off the coast of Greece. The battle, which took place in October 1571, was one of the largest naval engagements in history. It was a disaster for the Ottomans. The Allied fleet, equipped with superior firepower from their large galleasses, annihilated the Ottoman navy. Most of the Ottoman ships were captured or sunk, and tens of thousands of their sailors and soldiers were killed. Lepanto sent shockwaves across Europe. It was the first major naval defeat the Ottomans had suffered in centuries, shattering their aura of invincibility at sea. Church bells rang out in celebration from Venice to Madrid. However, the long-term strategic impact was less significant than it first appeared. As the Ottoman Grand Vizier famously told a Venetian diplomat, "In conquering Cyprus, we have cut off one of your arms. In defeating our fleet, you have only shaved our beard. A cut-off arm will not grow back, but a shorn beard will grow back even thicker." And he was right. The Ottoman Empire's resources were so immense that they managed to rebuild their entire fleet in just one winter. Shipyards across the empire worked day and night, and by the following summer, a new, even larger Ottoman navy was sailing the Mediterranean. This incredible feat demonstrated the empire's profound economic strength and organizational capacity. While Venice had lost Cyprus for good, the Ottomans had recovered from Lepanto with astonishing speed. The Holy League soon fell apart, and Venice was forced to sign a humiliating peace treaty, officially recognizing Ottoman control over Cyprus and paying a hefty tribute. While these major military events unfolded, what was Selim the Sot himself doing? He was largely occupied with life at the court in Istanbul. He was a great patron of the arts and architecture, commissioning projects that added to the splendor of the capital. The most famous of these is the magnificent Selimiye Mosque in Edirne, a masterpiece designed by the legendary architect Mimar Sinan. Sinan himself considered it his finest work, and it stands today as a testament to the cultural vibrancy of the era. Selim was also known to be a poet and enjoyed the finer things in life, which contributed to his reputation in Western sources as the Sot, suggesting he was more interested in wine and pleasure than in ruling. While this reputation is likely an exaggeration fueled by rival propaganda, it's true that Selim preferred the comfort of the palace to the hardships of a military campaign. He set a precedent that will be followed by many of his successors. The power of the Sultan began to shift from personal, charismatic leadership on the battlefield to an institutional role at the center of a vast bureaucracy. The Grand Vizier and the State Council, or Divan, gained more and more influence, governing the empire in the Sultan's name. For an empire of this size, this shift was perhaps inevitable. A single person could no longer manage every detail, and the reliance on skilled administrators like Sokolu Mehmed Pasha was a practical solution. Beyond the major military campaigns, Selim's reign saw other ambitious, forward-thinking projects. One of the most notable was the plan to dig a canal connecting the Don and Volga rivers. This would have allowed the Ottoman navy to sail from the Black Sea into the Caspian Sea, challenging Persian influence in the Caucasus and strengthening ties with the Muslim Khanatis of Central Asia. An expedition was sent, but the project proved too difficult and was eventually abandoned. Nevertheless, it shows that even with a less active sultan, the Ottoman state was still capable of grand strategic thinking. Selim II's reign lasted just 8 years. He died in 1574 at the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul at the age of 50. According to some accounts, his death was the result of a fall in a bathhouse after drinking too much. He was succeeded by his son, Murad III. Selim was buried in a grand tomb near the Hagia Sophia, a final monument to his time as sultan. So how should we remember Selim II? He was certainly no Suleiman the Magnificent. He was not a warrior king, and his personal style of rule was a radical departure from his predecessors. But to label him simply as a failure or a sot is to miss the bigger picture. His reign represents a crucial transition for the Ottoman Empire. It was a period when the institutions of the state proved strong enough to function effectively, even with a less hands-on ruler. The administrative and economic power built up under his father allowed the empire to not only conquer new territory like Cyprus, but also to recover from a catastrophic defeat like Lepanto with remarkable speed. Selim's reliance on his Grand Vizier, Sokolu Mehmed Pasha, highlights the growing importance of the bureaucracy in governing a sprawling, complex empire. His reign was a bridge between the classical age of warrior sultans and the later era of palace-bound rulers. While the seeds of future problems may have been sown during his time, the Ottoman Empire under Selim II remained the dominant power in the region, stable, prosperous, and secure. His story teaches us that power can be wielded in different ways, and that sometimes the strength of an empire lies not just in its leader, but in the systems and people who support him. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into Ottoman history interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the past. Let me know in the comments what you think about Selim II's legacy. See you next time.